we have an interesting article from Neil Patel. Neil Patel is a well-known marketer, pretty widespread presence in the marketing community. And he owns both an agency and a number of other sites and businesses, both for clients and for himself. And Neil recently revealed how Google's latest algorithm updates, including mostly a recent spam update, but also the helpful content update that happened in the last couple months, as well as a core algorithm update, actually impacted sites he owns that have AI generated copy. And to put it lightly, the results were not pretty. So Neil Patel disclosed that he has over 100 what he calls experimental sites that use AI written content. He claims the sites are simply to figure out how Google perceives AI written content, not to game the algorithm. Now, regardless of motivation, he sure found out how Google perceives AI written content, because as a result of these updates that Google has rolled out in the last few months, Patel saw his AI generated content sites get crushed by the most recent spam update, which just completed, I believe, in the last week. And he saw for AI only content, content not modified by humans, just produced by AI and published, an average drop of 17% in traffic and an average drop of almost 8 positions in search rankings for AI only content. Now, he actually compared that to AI generated content that he did have a human team edit, add to, and kind of polish for publication. And those sites only dropped 6% over that same period and saw about a 3 position drop in search. So a dramatically lower impact on the AI generated content that has been also augmented by humans. Now, Patel readily admits that it's still really early to kind of draw ironclad conclusions here, but it certainly seems like purely AI generated content may have some blind spots when it comes to search. So this is an area we obviously have experimented in. Kind of, Paul, what do you make of this development and of Neil's findings here?
I mean, I love Neil. His content's amazing. We've followed Neil for years. I love that he describes them as experimental sites that use AI written content. Um, I assume that means he was making no commercial gains from these 100 sites that were using AI written content for however long he's been experimenting with this. But anyway, so experimental sites or commercially experimental sites, regardless. Um, I think it's interesting that there's data to it. You know, as soon as we saw the helpful content update and it was very clear that there was an attempt to weed out or penalize AI generated content, you know, it seemed Google was definitely moving in that direction. And then with the spam update and the different things that they've been pushing, it's pretty obvious that there's a bit of an arms race developing where Google wants to know if AI wrote the content, and the platforms enabling the content creation with AI and the people using those platforms probably don't want Google to know that AI wrote most of the content. And so it's one of those where right now Google appears to have found ways to know if content or predict that content was likely largely written by AI. And my guess is that the algorithms on the other end are going to keep getting better and keep making it harder for Google to know AI wrote it. I know that there is a, like, what was it? Is it Writer that has like the AI copy checker where it actually, like, you can put the content in and it'll analyze how much it seems that AI wrote of that piece of content. So I think there's going to be this really interesting phase where Google's going to keep trying to find ways to say, make your content more human, and machines are going to keep trying to find ways, or the people that build the machines keep trying to find ways to make the machine content sound more human. And somewhere in this is probably the moral of the story, which is don't rely on AI to write your content purely. It is increasingly valuable as an assistant to writing content and generating ideas and building briefs and developing drafts. but do not remove the human from the equation. I think we knew all that before. It took Neil building 100 experimental sites to figure that out statistically, at least in his world here. But I think it's been pretty generally accepted for a while that letting AI write all of your content was going to end poorly for everyone. And I wouldn't advise it. I would think of AI as an assistive writing tool, and I would keep humans in the loop at all times. It might not be as much as we used to need them, but the humans need to be there and they need to be helping uh, craft the final content, I would say.
So it sounds like you don't see this as necessarily invalidating the use case or the value of AI content generation, but more approaching it with a little more nuance and subtlety. If I'm a company or a brand, I imagine, we both used to work in the agency world and the client services business. And the first question I feel like we would probably get from a client after reading this article is something like, okay, well, should we be using it? Should we not? How should we be using it?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, I think we've talked about it in this podcast before, or maybe I did it in a recent interview. You and I started this project Copy Scale back in like 2015, 16 at our agency. And the question was, can AI write content? Like, can we as a content agency use AI to help us write blog posts? And the answer then was a resounding no, like it was nowhere close. The answer today is yes,
Hmm.
it can write blog posts. Like, I mean, I've been playing around with Jasper recently. We've looking at a lot of tools. Looking at writers is fantastic. We got guys at Hyperwrite, Go Charlie. I'm sure I'm missing some. We've tested Phrase. Like, we've played around with a lot of writing tools. Many of them are GPT-3 based, and I can tell you right now, like, it's pretty good at writing drafts. It's shockingly good, actually. Like, if you just give it a prompt, like, write me a article about AI generated content, it's going to do it. Like, it's going to give you like 400 or 500 words if you go long form, and it's going to read to the average person like a decent human writer wrote it. And so there is absolutely going to be a desire for brands and agencies and publishing companies to just say, well, if it's that good, like, let's just let the AI do it. So it's going to be really challenging because it's pretty good now, and I can't even imagine like 6 months or 12 months from now, like these tools we're playing around with and that everybody has access to. I know they're getting better fast. So I don't know. I mean, I look at this space, and it is every day. It is more fascinating to see what's going on in the language space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously still really early, but given how fast these tools have developed, I imagine there's a lot of people, including us, who are sitting back and really thinking about, so what do you see as like the human's best and highest role in content creation moving forward? Because there's no doubt it's changing, even if it will take a couple more years to truly sink in for a lot of other people that are skeptical, and this will happen. I mean,
Yeah.
where do we fit in?
I mean, I think I think about editors more than the writers sometimes, because I think that's almost more easier to understand, because I think a lot of writers are going to spend more time as editors. I guess is like a simple way to say it. So if I were to write a 1,000 word blog post in a traditional process, I would start with my idea. I would build an outline. I mean, you and I do this for a living. I've done this for a living for decades. You build your outline, you figure out what your lead is, you figure out your key points within the story, you kind of have an idea of where it's going to go. And then you start writing and you draft and you write the first, the sloppy first draft, and then you go back around and, I'll usually do 3, 4 revisions of my own. And then I'll normally have someone on the team edit it. Like that 1,000 word post, where I can knock out the draft maybe in an hour and a half, like hour and a half, depending on if I have to do any research related to it. The end product is going to take me 5 to 7 hours before I hit publish, and upload the thing and do all this stuff. I could absolutely see that entire process taking 30 minutes to an hour on the high end, but the research phase is going to be automated. Like, I'm just say, hey, give me 5 bullet points on the problems with using AI generated content. boom, like instantly, 10 seconds in, I've got my 5 key points. Like those are really valid. And it might give me an idea for like 2 other ones, whatever. So I've got my points. Okay. Write me the first paragraph about the opportunity that exists to write content with AI. Boom, instantly. Like I got my paragraph. Okay. Keep going. Like that's pretty good. And now I'm just like, I'm letting the machine, I'm just prompting it, like keep going and give me more content. And then I'm going to step back and I haven't written a draft yet. Like the AI has now done it. I've prompted the draft, but I haven't written anything yet. Now I'm going to step back and I'm going to read it. And I'm like, this is actually really good. And I'm just probably going to highlight, I'm going to update this paragraph. I'm going to do this paragraph, do a plagiarism checker, make sure it's like legit and like original. But my role as a writer is largely now an editor.
Mm.
And maybe I'm going to jump in and rewrite my own lead because I got some inspiration now, or I'm going to do a conclusion in different, but the process is completely different. Like it's just, and that's today. Like I mean, we're not talking about future stuff here. This is the tech that you can go get for $49 a month or whatever it is. And so I think it's going to be very disruptive to large content teams. You know, if I think about brands that have dozens of writers or hundreds
Hmm.
of writers, you have to start thinking immediately about advancing and upskilling or reskilling that team and thinking realistically about, do you need all those people on that team? And if you're going to redistribute, or what can those people be doing if you're saving 50% efficiency on the content you're creating? Are you just going to create 50% more content? Like same amount of right? Like there's major decisions to be made around this stuff. And I just don't feel like people are ready.
Yeah, it seems like step one for many, many, if not the majority of people, is understanding that this is here.
You got to go try it. Go get a tool. Like we say this all the time, you have to experience it. Go test a few GPT-3 powered tools and see for yourself. This is not BS. We are not like overhyping what it can do. This is legit tech that does this stuff now, and it's only going to get better and it's going to happen fast. You got to try it, and you have to think about, what does this mean to my team and my business model?